the DMEXCO session, all about a cookieless future. We're going to have an amazing discussion today. I'm going to introduce the panelists shortly, but I wanted to spend a few seconds just to set some context. So we all know through the industry that the end of the cookie might not be a bad thing for the advertising industry. In fact, it could be a massive opportunity. And we all know that we've been involved in the industry for so long. Our desire has always been that there's a lot of transparency and a lot of openness to how different channels work and how they're measured, and also how the consumer or the end user understands the quid pro quo of the internet and how their data is being used to deliver more relevant and more useful advertising. We're going to debate whether that's a good thing and what we should do, how we should prepare for it. We're going to also explore the areas of what if you do nothing, and investigate some areas of the discussion that we all know we've got to face over the next few years, but possibly we need to do that now rather than later. So the kind of questions that we're going to look through and tackle for marketeers is like, what's your readiness for the depreciation of cookies? What complications come with the shift to first-party data? How can you use that first-party and third-party data to add value to your business? And at the same time, what are the concerns that need addressing across the advertising industry ongoing? And what possibly are the misunderstandings or the myths that hopefully we can dispel? So I'm going to introduce our panel. So we've got Aneta Novobiska, Chief Product Officer from Upday. We've got Jan Hummüller, the Managing Director of Central Europe at Uruguay. We've got Niels Kopnowski. Sorry, Niels. I'm going to do it again. We've got Niels Kopnowski, Head of Trading and Operations for DACH in MIQ. And we've got Arne Kirchum, Media Director at DACH in Unilever. So guys, welcome to the panel, and let's hope that we're going to have a good discussion and I haven't fluffed up your names too much. Well, so let's kick off looking at how marketers are experiencing a unique convergence of events in time where there is unprecedented pressure to move and to provide ROI back to your business. The landscape has been absolutely transformed by changing consumer preferences and emerging new privacy and ad relevance challenges. So where does the end of the cookie sit for you in the priority list, and how are you going to be preparing for it? Are you going to look for alternative identity solutions, for example, or are you going to do nothing? So let's start with Arne. You're bringing the big brand perspective here. So what are your thoughts on the post-cookie world?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Well, actually, first of all, let's be honest. Cookies have been far from being perfect all the time, especially for targeting demographic audiences. There we've seen a lot of challenges, and they're far from being precise. They do not live forever. And when it comes to data privacy, it also gives us a lot of challenges. Well, but having said this, in the past, we also used cookies for a number of things. We used them for frequency capping, for better targeting, for retargeting, and also when it comes to the lower funnel, we used them to finally understand what is the last conversion. We used them to improve based on this data our advertising. So at the end, I cannot say, well, it's all for nothing. We need a replacement, that's for sure. And what we have also seen, gathering data for our own DMP, the flow of third-party cookie data, which has come into it in the last 12 months, has become more and more tiny. So it's not a certain end to the process we observe. It's a process which is ongoing. So to come back to your question, it's high on our priority list. We need to find something else, and we have already started, although it's a long journey. We have started, of course, to look into our first-party data and to collect them and to become more an owner of first-party data, knowing that we will never come to the wealth of the walled gardens. We are looking, of course, also into collaboration with partners. And finally, we are looking on what can we do with contextual targeting, which was the good old thing in the past, but now with all the programmatic options we have becomes much more sophisticated.
Annetta, what we've heard from an advertiser, a really significant advertiser's perspective, but as a content aggregator, what do you think, and how well equipped do you think that the publishers and the content like provision is ready for this change?
I actually like what Arne is saying, because of course we as publishers, we say that, we follow actually the buy side, so the advertisers, if it comes to the solutions that we are going to work at, right? Like it's not that we'll be driving the market, since the advertising revenue is what we need as content companies or journalistic publishers. So what we do on our side, it's definitely one of the topics on our priority list. I feel like doing nothing is definitely a no-go. On the corporate level, since we are a company of Axel Springer, we do have a big team working on testing of alternative identifiers. I feel that these solutions are not really mature as of today. So in my small team, we are not testing indeed as of now. So no alternative identifiers for now. But we do that on the corporate level, and then probably depending on their adoption, we'll pick maybe 2 or 3 things in order to basically have our opinion on that. Other than that, we invest in, first of all, in product development in order to get authenticated information about the user, so email addresses or something like that. Lately we launched a new esports product, and when starting this product you have to actually log in first. So let's see how it goes. In fact, the big challenge is for many publishers that users have no motivation to log in. Like the value is simply not there for many, let's say, journalistic products. But this is something we are investigating on, and it's one of high priority topics. Other than that, obviously, collection of first-party data. That's something that we've been doing forever, since we actually track a lot of information in order to recommend content to the user. So we always had this data. We also built our own DMP and provide that to advertisers. And I feel right now it's a chance and it's a challenge to build a direct relationship to advertisers based on this data cooperations, and that's also one of our big priorities.
Jan, from a mobile platform perspective, do you have a different view about the cookie, like the importance of cookies, or not?
Well, first of all, I can only confirm what Arne from the advertise and Annetta from the publisher side said, and preparation for the post-cookie world should really be high on the priority list for all market participants. Why? Because what we see is the pool of available data for companies to conduct personalization in their advertising is really shrinking. And this is becoming a growing problem for relevant ad targeting. Ecosystem is becoming more and more fragmented in terms of all the market changes around IDs. What we think, it's even getting worse, because consumers are tightening their reins of data sharing, and also the regulations, which are kind of a product of what the users want and how they want to be tracked or not being tracked, is getting stronger and stronger. So for us, it's key for advertisers to really leverage a solution that steers away from identifiers as a base, or not trying to find alternative IDs. It's really time to switch to a new approach where kind of personification data is a layer, and audience interests are actually used to qualify impressions and not the users themselves. So not trying to find a kind of new cookie, a new ID, something new just to try to get away from the user's demand and also from the regulator's demand, but really try to find a new solution which is using and qualifying the ad impression and not the user himself.
Interesting. Niels, like from your perspective from MIQ, building on what Jan's just shared, do you feel that there's going to be some new emerging partnerships that are going to come out that will help the industry move forward?
From the MIQ perspective, I think that there are 2 very important perspectives. One is the client side, is talking to the clients, talking about the fact that we can help, we can do this together. You're not on your own. But the other is as well, just internally, we as a business, need to look after ourselves as well. I mean, the way we operate means that we're agnostic. We can kind of add any kind of tech partner, any kind of data partner to our modular solution for clients. But that also means, we don't really have our own data. We work with the data of others and kind of use that to get to the best possible results. But that also means, we need to make sure that that we're on the forefront of this and make sure that we can tackle the problems that the end of third-party tracking will inevitably bring. And arguably, I would say we've been doing that for quite a while. We've been doing that since kind of GDPR became a thing back in, before 2018. But obviously, arguably, really, we would have been starting looking into all of the different solutions that are in the market now, identifiers, data clean rooms, etc. For the past year or so. But I think that's like the internal bit, like the targeting options and stuff, that's really important. But then also like talking to clients about where they are, what they've been doing so far, what they've been looking at. And you can really, from our perspective, you can see that there's a discrepancy between companies like the one from Arno, where they're actually quite far. They've been actually doing quite a lot of stuff. They've been looking into stuff versus others of any size, really. Of course, there are smaller companies that don't really look at these things or just use full stack solutions. But even bigger companies that are actually very far behind or have not really been looking at these kind of issues.
So since you guys are highlighting a very important point, the point of collaboration right now on the market. I mean, I feel if that doesn't happen, that advertisers and agencies and technology companies and publishers, if we do not work together right now, we'll probably stay with this privacy solutions of, let's say, Google or other walled gardens. But I find it so challenging. I mean, right now, something that we are working on as well at Upday is a topic of contextual targeting and proper taxonomies for that. In order to actually have a common language between advertisers and platforms and publishers. But these are challenging things. Now it's all about, bringing the entire industry together on our own, while, previously it was basically driven by, let's say, Google as one of the players. So I feel right now it's like a huge chance maybe to develop, our forces on the other side as alternative. But I do not feel that we are really doing a good job right now. If 2022 means, okay, let's say no cookies as we know them today, I'm not sure if, if we have the speed of cooperating together, if we really come up with a solution in 2022.
It does kind of somewhat remind me, and although I don't know if we've all been through this experience because it was a little while ago, but when the Millennium Bug kind of happened and everyone was like, going, some people were like, oh my God, I'm going to have to protect all my systems. And then others were going, I don't think anything's going to happen. And it kind of begs the question, are we going through the same? And are people going through the same thinking? Is like, well, you know what, cookieless going away. What about, I think I'll just wait and see what happens. And then there are other people who are much more sophisticated and they already know and are reaping the benefits of being able to use that data in a careful and correct way. So I guess opening it to any of you, but maybe Niels, you could kick off. What do you think about the opinion of let's just wait and see and not do anything?
I mean, you've made a good point, because I think it does look, for some people, it may look like a viable option to do nothing at this point in time. Because if you look at the past, even if you just look at, the Google announcement now, again, that it's going to be the end of third-party tracking in their systems going to be put by another year. It's not the first time that happens. So if you're the one looking at this and saying, I mean, I've been right in the past, I've been right again this year, I'm just gonna waste, my resources if I actually start looking into this now. Even to the point where you might say that, it might not actually happen at all. There might always be some form of third-party tracking, because it's just not going to go away at all. I think that the main problem with that is that it disregards what has already happened, because what you look at there is really just the end game, or the ultimate death of third-party tracking, which would come about if Google finally decides to do it, so to say. But it disregards the fact that already the cookie and the third-party tracking that we knew from before GDPR really is already half dead. It wasn't a big bang development. Even with the introduction of GDPR, it wasn't really a big bang development, but it came over the past couple of years. And if you now, I mean, you could look at different analysis and different statistics, but you can safely say that about half of the people, if you just look at display, for example, if half of the users you can't track anymore via third-party tracking in browsers, in general browsers. Google is really the only one that still allows it, right? And that means that finding a solution for something like this now, it's not just looking into the future, but it's actually going to help you right now. Some of the tests that we've done actually suggest, if you start looking into this, if you start ingesting or working with your first-party data, that's already going to help you. That's already going to give you some sort of a competitive advantage over others who don't do it. So it doesn't really matter, whether that's going to happen in the future or whether it's going to happen now. The end of third-party tracking, the end of view. But working on a solution is already going to help you now. And the other argument is, of course, if we keep looking at the Google example, the only reason why that's been extended, that's not because Google gives everyone else some more time to breathe. It's because their own solution isn't ready yet. Right, so it's in the end, you're waiting for them to create a solution, and then probably you're going to have to go with it, or with any of the other solutions that are ready by then, full stack solutions, because you've not looked at what is the best for your purposes. So I think those are all of the arguments there to really start looking at this stuff now.
Yeah, I think do nothing can never be an option, because then you completely leave your destiny to others. And you might, at the end, find yourself in a position where you simply have to accept the rules of the game dictated by big players. Yeah, and I think that is the big question. I mean, but if you do something, you also have to understand what to do, and I think that is now the challenge, because there is a vision, but you need a lot of technical understanding, and then the big question is what will come out as the big solution for the market. And from an advertiser's view, of course, I'm also not too happy to find thousands of solutions, and then I have to get people and experts for every solution, yeah, and then nobody will understand it anymore at the end. You leave the dependency from the big players in the market, but then you're completely dependent to your experts, because no marketeer will ever understand what's going on there in the machine room.
Do you think some marketeers might think that it's just easier to give all my money across to the walled garden? Do you think that's an option? And what do you think the pitfalls of that scenario happening? What do you think would happen for the industry if that was a choice?
Yeah, I mean, at least you have to put it as a benchmark, because if you, like we do, run your own DMP, it means a lot of investment, technical investment, people, resources, and you have to calculate somewhere, does it pay off? And I think the benchmark then is, I don't do anything myself. I just hand over my budget to the walled gardens and say, okay, you do the best with it. Yeah. And then you also have to look, okay, how much of your digital budget is already running outside walled gardens? How much do you spend via DSP, which is not Google? Yeah. And can I ever get so many data as the big companies have? Yeah. Will I ever get anywhere near to it? And my answer still would be, yeah, it's worth to do it. You should not leave yourself completely to the big players for 3 reasons. So first of it is you get better efficiency. That's what we have seen. Our own segments, which we have built in our DMP, were much more efficient than those bought in audiences. Secondly, you lose your understanding what's happening with data. You lose your understanding, because then you're just marketeer. As I just have described, you have no experts, you don't know what's happening. Yeah, you just have to believe. And thirdly, you're completely dependent. And I think as a big advertiser, you need to stay independent. You need to keep your destiny in your own hands, and you cannot fully hand it over and say, okay, you manage my data, because that will be the decisive question of the future.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think from the consumer's point of view as well, you don't then have the benefit of a company understanding what information they've already sent to you, what they haven't, and you end up getting really tired of similar messaging because of that inefficiency, and it's not going to be great for them either. And Netta, what do you think from a publisher point of view?
I absolutely couldn't agree more. And maybe one more point that I would add on that is we keep complaining that, walled gardens, big players, they all rule the world. In fact, right now we have a chance to build something that is maybe better, that, make sure that solutions are adopted. But I'm basically observing, are we really able to do that? And that's actually the big challenge. The chance is over there. There are solutions coming to the market. There are alternatives. But I think right now I'm particularly realizing what a great job actually these guys did, what a great job Google did, building solutions that are well adopted in the market. It is simply easier. It is easier as well for me as a publisher to take, one solution, not to test, several options, right? It will be the same for the advertisers, not to develop now solutions, alternative tracking possibilities or data taxonomies. Challenging thing though. So basically what I'm observing is okay, after all these years, us complaining, now we've got the stage. And are we going to, take this opportunity and really develop something that is better, that is comparable, that will be adopted? Let's see.
And can it be across multiple channels as well? Jan, how do you feel about that?
Well, yeah. So I think what are we speaking about? We speak about advertising and the brands who want to be appreciated by the user. And I think in order to be appreciated by the user in the communication, the way you actually track the users or how you actually do targeting should also be appreciated by the users, because otherwise it's a kind of pitfall you're running in. And we are moving into a more privacy-centric world, and the ID-based solutions are just a logical step, or the non-ID-based solutions are a logical step forward to move out of this, take into consideration the privacy demand and request from the user themselves. And what we saw, and Arne also mentioned it in many cases, the ID-based solutions, they have not been really able to deliver the performance that advertisers need, at least if you are not able to use your own data in a best way. So what we actually built is a technology which is built on the concept of personification. We use actually proprietary audience interest data to qualify the impression and not qualify the individual user. And this means it's less intrusive to the consumer. And we also see that this actually leads to the fact that it's more appreciated by the user. And the way it's actually done is the data is founded on how the audiences use the mobile phones and understand the mobile journey of the audiences across all the apps and sites, which gives a really in-depth understanding of audience interests. And we actually use our historical mobile journey data and enrich and validate it with surveys that are being served to users ongoing, and ad choices. So, for instance, we can see which ad out of 3 users selected on specific publishers on specific placements. This, together with contextual and semantical data, leads to a kind of continual cycle of learning and optimizing. And it's actually for us key to move away from finding one user, but more identify the quality and the interest of a single ad impression.
I'd love to get on to kind of some myth busting. What do you think the most frustrating myths are about when the cookie goes away, and what's the real truth from your perspective?
From publisher perspective, since we consider users very much we do products for users. So I feel like the biggest myth or a lie in the current situation and this perspective of being cookie-less world is that it's the end of tracking. We hear about cohort-based tracking, various alternative identifiers, third-party data, still so many tracking also opportunities. Yeah, different ones. Maybe, when you buy a washing machine on Amazon, it will not find you. The same advertising will not find you on really every platform, but it will find you. So I feel like probably the easiest and the biggest lie right now related to that is like it's the end of tracking, because it's not.
You can still do this, but without identifying a single individuum. And I think there will be still the option of find the right audience by qualifying the impression. And we should really not try to find new solution to use that are using alternative identifiers in order to deliver personalized ads, because this is kind of flying in the face of consumer privacy, and it's ignoring why and where this is coming from, and where also the cookie death ultimately is coming from. And I do not think that they are not sustainable business solutions.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Arne, what do you think?
Well, I think the first myth definitely was, and I mean, that's what came out of this discussion already, is cookies are the answer to everything. Third parties, cookies will give us complete great targeting opportunities, and I'm still by one of the kings of retargeting. I get offered a calendar for 2021 these days, end of August. So even the Amazons of these days have not fully figured out how to manage cookies. And the second thing I would say is digital advertising will come to an end when the cookies die. That's also not true. We will find something, and my strong conviction is that the market will find a solution.
Couldn't agree more. Niels, have you got anything to add?
Less of a myth, but it's really, and we've talked about this now as well. If there's one thing that people want to take away from this discussion is, the time to act and the time to get involved is now, not a month from now, not 5 months from now, not a year from now. It is very important for those who haven't done it yet to start doing this now, because you will have an advantage in the future. It's going to help you now in the present already, and it's definitely going to help you in the future, because. And that might be a myth again, the third-party tracking, the third-party cookie, and this type of tracking will eventually die. Perhaps it's down to one company to decide the point in time, but it's gonna happen. So you shouldn't be looking at that. You should be looking at yourself.
Thank you all so much for not only your expertise, but a lively debate. And we went down every angle of like, should we, shouldn't we, can we afford to ignore it? There's plenty of key takeaways. The option of doing nothing is not an option. It's kind of really our responsibility as an industry to make sure that everybody's data is safe, it's being used in a respectful way, and most importantly, then the advertising industry is thriving, but also able to reach customers in the way that they want to be reached, with useful and interesting adverts, not the opposite. Making sure that the overall industry is like powered by fair and like responsible data management, so that the open internet can thrive, so that many publishers and many people who are providing lots of great content, great applications, like great services, are still able to operate, and not just lining the pockets of the walled gardens. So we've got a rich choice available to us all. And then this notion of making sure that there is an identity solution that puts the consumers first and puts transparency and control into their hands, so that we all benefit, so that there's not too many solutions that marketeers are just going to get overwhelmed with, but there's one or two solutions that really everyone can benefit from. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you to everyone that listened and tuned in today. So here's to transitioning to a post-cookie world.